Hey, welcome to Retired Now What, the podcast that's here to guide you through the exciting journey of retirement. Whether you're asking yourself now what or eager to explore the untapped possibilities in this new chapter, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Michael Kiffmeyer, and together we will discover how to repurpose your knowledge, embrace mastery, and live a purpose-driven life. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. This is Michael Kiffmeyer, and you're listening to You've Retired, Now What? I'm your host, Michael Kiffmeyer, and weekly we have a series of podcasts and information that we bring to you to help you through this transition of retirement. Many retire and they think that retiring is going to just be a breeze, that they've waited their whole life for this, they've thought about this, they've planned for it, and then all of a sudden something happens. What happens? You never planned about the emotional and the identity crisis that you might face. You know, when you worked, it was pretty simple. You had a structure, you had where you needed to be each and every day. You had friends that you ate lunch with, talked with, interacted with, and life was good. But you wanted to retire and you planned to retire. And once you retire, many of those friends go away. Not on purpose, it's just they have jobs still to do. You're retired and you got to start that social structure all over again. Once people retire, they really don't quite know exactly what to expect. And when I say the shock of retirement, the first and foremost thing that people are shocked with is their lack of identity, their lack of who am I now? You know, you can go through that first 2 or 3 years, which I call the honeymoon period. You can do whatever you want. But, you know, eventually you are going to, you need a sense of purpose. You need to find new things that you can do. And you need a reason to get up and out of that bed each and every day. Without structure, without a purpose, we kind of lose ourselves. We can get depressed real quickly, and our significant other and our families, they don't understand what we're going through. You're retired. You should be happy. Yeah, that's great, but you also need a sense of purpose. So that's probably the first thing that starts to get in your way. The next thing that you start to think about is your finances. You've probably been very diligent. You worked with somebody at your HR or even a financial planner, and you planned exactly how you're going to retire and what you could expect. But guess what you didn't expect? You didn't expect that inflation that we're going through right now in 2024. You're retired on a fixed income, and all of a sudden, prices have gone up 15, 18, 20%. The price of gasoline is through the roof. Housing is to the point right now people can't afford it. And even if you wanted to downsize right now, unless you are financially stable and have all your debts paid off, it could be a tough thing to do. People want to always know, and especially financial planners, so why don't you downsize? Well, we're creatures of habit. And when I say we, I'm talking about humans. We're used to our home. We're used to the way that we've always lived. And that's what we're planning on. Perhaps we should sell the house, but we can't quite bring ourselves to do it. The other thing we can't quite bring ourselves to do is we've collected all this stuff over the years. And you learn when you get, in your 70s, it's just stuff. And why do you hold on to it all the time? Because you're used to it, and because it's almost like it makes you feel safe, which sounds crazy because chances you're going to use it again are probably pretty slim if you haven't used it in the last year, 2, 3 years. People, they struggle with this transition of being on their own because they've lost their social network. They have to find new ways to do that. So, what are some of the suggestions I would have? First and foremost, you need to start working on things that interest you. And if they don't interest you anymore, don't try to force fit it. When we were younger, we had dreams and we had visions, and we were told to put them by a side. We needed to get a regular job, which meant 9 to 5. Those rules don't work anymore. They simply don't. People like myself that are baby boomers, we're not done yet. Retirement might be a phase, but it's just a stage. It's not the final resting stop. If it's true that we're going to live an extra 25 to 30 years, as doctors science and scientists say, after the age of 65, that's a whole long time to not have a sense of purpose and have some idea what you're going to do. So what would that be? Well, it could be anything from working a hobby. Maybe you have that old car out in the driveway that you were always going to fix, never did. Maybe you have projects that you wanted to do. You wanted to sew, you wanted to write books, you wanted to do different areas that you'd always dreamed of, but you never did it. Why can't you do it now? And the quick answer is there's no reason. You can try. You need to reach out to others that have already retired. You need, and what you need to do is you need to ask them, share with me when you first retired what you kind of went through. You'd be amazed at how people want to help. I always say the number one thing people like to talk about is themselves. So, but there's a wealth of knowledge out there, and you could learn from these folks and kind of figure out for yourself what can work for me and what won't work for me, and what do I like and what I don't like. You need to make a list of what your values are. If you have further goals in your life, what are those goals? You need to match those values with your goals. And if it doesn't fit, toss it. Try something new. The other thing that you always have to pay attention to, as I said earlier, is you got to pay attention to your finances. You can't control inflation, but you certainly can put about 6 months worth of monthly expenses away and be ready for something that might happen in a pinch. And what do I mean by something? I'm saying all of a sudden you have to have a car fix, someone gets sick. One of the things that we all have to face after the age of 50 is our healthcare costs are going to go up. My doctor told me that things go wrong after the age of 50. And this was not just me. It was, it's people in general. The body can only withstand so much. And after the age of 50, your past starts to catch up to you a little bit. Or more importantly, your body doesn't respond as it once did. So you might have to look, for expenses to cover all that if your health insurance doesn't. Many of you got great health insurance, and that's wonderful, but there's a whole lot out there that doesn't, and you're going to have to plan for that. So people get stuck in their ways, and change really takes time. I have a background in adult learning, and one of the things that I know is change takes anywhere from 60 to 90 days. 90 days is more like it. And can you teach an old dog new tricks? You absolutely can. Personally, I've changed careers throughout the course of my lifetime 5 times. I had a disruption in my life at 64 years old. Went through a divorce, moved cross country, and quite literally had to start all over. But you know how I looked at it? I've got a whole life in front of me. If I'm going to live another 30 years, I want to make the most of it. And you can do the same thing. I want to share with you that you need to join groups, and you need to investigate different areas that you might like to be a part of. This can be your new social group. You need to look at your financial planning and where you stand. And you always have to work in an iterative fashion. That means that what worked today might not work tomorrow. And if you have a plan and you're looking to your expenses, change it if it's not fitting your needs. We always think that when we retire, we're not going to spend as much money. But we're in a commercial driven world, and we like to buy things. And how many of you are just embracing the convenience of Amazon? You see something you need, you click a button, and boom, it's on your doorstep the next day. Then all of a sudden you look at your bank statement and you got more packages and you got more expenses than you ever thought. You need to account for that. You need to give yourself a budget, and you need to stay on top of it. No longer are you going to let other people dictate and tell you what you're all about. This is your life. And in this next phase of your life, let's start going about it and doing the things that we want to do. So I took some time and I went and interviewed some people, both in my church and in some retirement homes. And I wanted to see what their feelings were about retirement. One lady, she had been a teacher for 40 years. And after the first year of retirement, she found herself getting, I guess, itchy, if you will, about doing something new. She was used to teaching students and interacting with her colleagues and sharing intellectual capital with each other, and now all of a sudden that was gone. She was feeling a huge void in her life, and she had to find a way to fill it. Well, the way she filled it was she started to volunteer. She started to share her expertise with others that were around her. You know, over all those years that you worked, you developed a lot of intellectual capital. You can help others with that, and you can teach them what they've learned. We don't dictate to them, but we answer their questions that they might have. Wouldn't it feel great to help a young person go through life, or give them some advice, and so they didn't have to go through some of the same things that you went through, and you can make it easier? Other areas that I found is I came across a gentleman that was an engineer in a high-pressured corporate job. I kind of snickered when I listened to him, because he was kind of like me. I worked in corporate America for 40 plus years, and it was high pressure, and everything was next, and you were looking for the day that you would just stop and relax and not have to deal with that anymore. But guess what? Funny thing happened on the way to retirement. This gentleman just felt a real void, that his life was structured, and he didn't feel like he was relevant anymore. So what did he do? Well, first and foremost, he joined a hiking club, and he would interact with his colleagues. He also interacted with people that were just like him, recently retired, and he listened to their struggles. And you know what was nice about that? They interacted with each other. They helped each other instead of just sitting out there all alone. Isolation is a real pandemic in the United States right now. And I would say it's a real pandemic in the rest of the world. So, and how do we get that way? Well, I think the advent of online projects and interacting with each other just with our phones and our iPads or our Androids, I think that was a part of it. Another part of it is that people started to change the way they thought about their life after the pandemic. They saw their jobs taken away, they were locked down, and they felt like caged animals. They did it for our own health and to protect us, but it really rearranged the thinking of many individuals. This one, myself, being one of them. If I'm going to be responsible for my security, then I'm going to do it on my own and not depend on others. You could depend on others, and just like the pandemic, you could work 20, 30 years, then all of a sudden it's gone. I know I have a young sister. She was let go after 27 years. And it's just, her identity was gone. I had a conversation with her, and she shared with me she feels empty and she feels like she should be going to work, and that work's gone now. So I encouraged her that let's think back, and let's all the things that you know how to do. You can do a lot of those things online if that's what you choose to do. There's many organizations that like to hire older workers if that's what's right for you. So you don't have to just stay in a traditional job just to be happy. You can do other things. So let's continue on with. I also interviewed an insurance salesman, and much the same way. He had a real great structure. He was going to retire, and everything was going to be grand. But one more time, a funny thing happened on the way to retirement. He felt empty. He felt isolated, and he's questioning now what he's going to do. And he's in the process right now of working through what can I and what can I do? What am I good at? What values do I have? Do the values I have match up with what I think I possibly might want to do? I'm going to share with you right here and right now that if you do not match your values to your interests, chances are probably very, very good you're not going to do this for a long period of time. And guess what? That's okay. You don't have to continue to do what you don't like to do. You need to, back in the day, it was called a Ben Franklin list, where you took out a tablet of paper and you drew it down the middle of the line and you put the pros and the cons. I'd implore you to do that for yourself as well. I would get involved with things. And you know what's the greatest thing about being retired? You can step outside of your comfort zone and do things that you've never done before. And you might be amazed. Remember when we were back in school, and those of you that went to college, all of a sudden you were faced with areas of working you never knew before. I know for myself, I never knew that you could marry technology with education. I kind of did that back when I was 38 and learned how to put that together and built one of the first and the largest interactive learning centers in the nation. You could do the same, maybe not what I did, but you'd be amazed with all that intellectual capital you've built over the years, what you could do with that. Are you honest with yourself on what you want to do? Do you want to leave a legacy? And a legacy doesn't just mean financially. It means that when you finally pass away, what do you want to be known for? Is that important to you? I know it's important to me. I've always thought I want to give more to this world than I took. I want to give back. And if you've had a nice life, then why don't you think about giving back and thinking how you can help others? I think it would be amazing. If you discover different things that you never knew about before, that could turn into a whole sense of purpose. It might even turn into a business if you want to do that. Think that's impossible? I read an article and saw it on the news show 60 Minutes, if you will, about a gentleman that was 55 years old, and he had worked in Silicon Valley here in California, where I'm from, and he had done computer chips and intellectual capital using artificial intelligence. At 55, he retired from these corporations, and guess what he did? He was a native of Taiwan. He went back to Taiwan and started the biggest and largest chip manufacturer in the world. You know who his number one client is? Apple Computer. Not too shabby for 55 years old. You've probably heard the articles or read something before about people like Colonel Sanders. He tried for years to get his chicken recipe accepted. It took him, close to 10 years, but at 65, he finally did it. Then you had Grandma Moses, never painted until she was in her 80s. She was about 85 years old before she started painting and turning out paintings that people wanted to buy. I think that's absolutely amazing. Ben Franklin, he was in the Parliament and Congress. He was in the French Parliament until he was in his 80s doing different things and keeping himself relevant. I think it's very important to keep yourself relevant because if you don't, you die before your time. I can recall going to a class reunion a few years ago and just how some of my friends lived and conducted their lives. I just thought, oh my goodness, they've kind of stopped. They've retired and they stopped. There's no need to stop. Us that are baby boomers, there's been a term called the bionic boomers. Why is it called bionic? Well, we can get our shoulders and our knees and our hips replaced, but that doesn't slow us down. We got too much to do. Our generation was always a generation that always questioned everything. They would tell us something and we'd say, why? Well, that's just the way it is. We never accepted that. I'm telling you, don't accept that now. You had dreams, you had ideas that you wanted to do when you were younger. Why can't you bring those back up out of the ashes? You've met all the obligations, I would assume, that you needed to do. Your answer now, or all you have to answer now, is to yourself. Why can't you do that? Why can't you sit down a plan and plan out what you're going to do in the next 5 years, 10 years, and etc. And you need to visit that plan on a regular basis because chances are it's going to change from time to time. And the way things are moving so quickly in this world, that's exactly why you need to re-examine, what you're going to do on a year-to-year basis. But Michael, I don't want to have this plan, etc. Well, if you don't, you're going to find yourself very bored very quickly. You still need to have plans. Perhaps you've heard me talk before. The Japanese culture, they have a word they call ikigai. And ikigai simply means a reason to get up out of that bed every day. There's more to it, but that's what it means. That's their sense of purpose, and I'd implore you to do the same thing. Don't sit and complain and talk about your aches and pains. That was our parents' generation, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but those of you listening, you've seen it as much as I have. And one of the areas that we always think about in retirement is, as I said earlier, I'm going to circle back around and talk about it again, is our finances. You need to look at this on a continuous basis. If you don't have enough to meet your needs, you need to see what you can do. I certainly can offer up some ideas on different areas where if you want to do something, what we call a side hustle, I certainly can point you in that direction. If the money starts to run out, you need to have a plan on how you're going to recuperate it. You need to, and you might not be able to recuperate it, but you might be able to grow in different areas. It's very important, as financial planners tell us, you need to have multiple streams of income. And for those of you that think you are going to live on Social Security, guess again. Social Security wasn't meant as a pension. It wasn't meant as a sole sense of income. Do you know right now they project here, and I'm coming to you on May 22nd, 2024. Do you know they project that we're going to run out of money for Social Security in 2033? That's 8 years from now. What's that mean? That means that if that's what you're planning on is your sole source of income, you're in for a tough road. And I don't want to see any of you fall by the wayside simply because all these other outside factors like inflation and the cost of living take over. You need to make sure that you can live the life that you always planned to do. So I have an idea for you. I'm holding a free challenge on in June. I think it'll probably be the week of June 10th. I'll be back with you with exact dates. But in that challenge, it's going to be called You've Retired, Now What? I spent many years helping corporations, universities, and schools teach their people, their customers, and their colleagues with online learning. In that time, I developed processes and methodologies that I can use to help you to achieve your dreams. When I first started doing this on my own, and this is self-education, and which is projected by Forbes magazine to be a $1 billion a day industry by the year 2025. My sole mission was to help others to live their dreams and their vision and turn that into reality. So you did what everybody told you for so many years. Now it's time for you to do for you. I'd like you to join this challenge if you could, and tell your friends, colleagues, and family, and keep listening to this podcast. Maybe share it with someone that's going through some of the things that you are. Please don't think that just because someone is retired, they got it all together. But if you ask a few questions, they don't, and they're going through some of the same struggles you are. I thank you for listening today. I do this on a weekly basis. I'd sure like you to come back. And if I can answer any questions for you, please reach out to me. I'm on Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I thank you for listening, and I wish you a great day. Thanks for tuning in to Retired Now What? I hope today's conversation has given you some valuable insights as you navigate the journey of life after retirement. Always remember, life doesn't stop after retirement. It's an opportunity for a new beginning.